What's up, everybody? Welcome back to IGN GameScoop. I'm your host, Damon Hatfield. I'm joined now by Justin Davis,
Scoop,
Ryan McCaffrey,
Howdy,
and Greg Miller.
Scoop.
The top 3 articles on IGN this week are: number 1, PlayStation 4 operates at lower temperature than PlayStation 3.
You got to pre-order it. Run out and pre-order right now.
More people read that story on IGN this week than anything else.
They're really interested in the operating temperature of their consoles. Number 2, the top 25 animated series for adults. And number 3, why Steam trading cards should embarrass Microsoft and Sony, written by our own Justin P. Davis.
Justin Davis.
Justin Plinkus Davis.
Give us the Cliff Notes version of your article. Summarize it for
us. Sure. So Steam came out with Steam trading cards, and by playing Steam games, you will get card drops randomly, and they're added to your Steam inventory. If you collect all the cards for a game, you're able to redeem them and get rewards, things like profile backgrounds that are related to that game, or like if you played a lot of Super Meat Boy, you might get like a Meat Boy emoticon that you could use in the Steam chat. The rewards are mostly silly, but what I think is really impressive about them is A, they're giving something away that Sony and Microsoft like to charge for, little digital trinkets. But B, if you don't care about this stuff at all, you can sell it to other players. So I sold an emoticon for like 40 cents the other night. You can sell all your trading cards as well. Like they have this elaborate marketplace.
So, Ryan and Greg, do you agree with Justin that should Sony and Microsoft be embarrassed by this?
It's way too strong language. I mean,
on IGN?
Yeah. Trolling us again, are you, IGN? No, I think, they should definitely take note, and they will. First off, Steam's been way ahead of the curve forever. That's the whole thing. Sony takes all their digital cues from Steam, but it's the same thing with I don't think that they should be embarrassed because it's not like Steam's been doing this for years.
Sure.
They just started doing it. They just figured it out, and now they are going to be copied, guaranteed. The same way that trophies copy achievements.
Yeah, I think Sony and Microsoft are more than happy to let Valve test the waters and pave the way, and then they'll swoop in and put some fancy name on it. And look at this cool new thing we're doing.
Yeah, exactly, all right.
Yeah, and that was, I'm very happy with that article. I stand by it. If there were something I would have changed or would have liked to have thought a little bit more about, is I don't mention that Sony has tested the waters a little bit with the trophies, what was it called, Greatness?
Yeah, Greatness Awaits campaign. They just did.
And that's not a permanent thing, but on a temporary basis, based on your trophy level, you could win, things that were in the commercial.
Yeah, basically they did the Greatness Awaits ad with all these different references, and then they took all the costumes from that, put them on a website, and you could bid based on the gold trophies you had on your profile.
That plus Microsoft, although they do charge for lots of silly avatar items, you can get, if you get an achievement in a game, you might get a profile picture or something like that.
Yeah, they have unlockables now,
And my profile picture is actually a Pac-Man Ghost from Pac-Man CE that, I got free for playing the game.
Well, that was... Pac-Man CE was like 2007, so...
I like that purple ghost. And so I don't mention those in the article, so in the interest of fairness, those probably should have been at least brought up in some way. But the reason I say that Microsoft and Sony should be embarrassed, instead of the headline being why Steam trading cards are great, is because in researching the article, I'm like, well, I need to make sure I'm really buttoned up on what Microsoft and Sony are up to. And I have this really elaborate, really consumer-friendly Steam system that works. It's great. It's fun to participate in. If you don't care about it, you can make a little bit of dough for yourself. And then I go to the Avatar Marketplace, and they're selling a Turbo Racing League shirt for $1.
So that you can advertise their product.
So pay us $1 to have this shirt that no one would even want to wear in real life unless, maybe a little kid loves that movie. Yeah. But it made me cringe. I'm like, it makes them look behind the times.
But again, it's behind the times by a week. A few days. I think that's the whole point. When somebody comes out and changes stuff, makes a great point, then the industry reacts. Especially right now with a new console cycle about to begin. I think
I give Sony a little bit more of a pass. The reason that I feel like Microsoft should maybe be thumped for this a little bit more is these are things they were talking about in 2005 with Velocity Girl. When I bring this,
remind us of this.
I'm surprised how many people don't remember this because to me, I guess I was at that press conference, and so
who could forget.
I was going to say the hit Velocity Girl. How could we forget?
So this is before the Xbox 360 came out. They were talking about the Xbox Marketplace, and now the Marketplace seems commonplace, right? Everyone buys everything from it; it's normal. But before the 360 came out, when you're coming from the original Xbox, that was a big.
What is this magic?
Every game's gonna have a demo, and that was a big deal. And so the Velocity Girl was some hypothetical gamer that might not even play games, but like for a skateboarding game, she might
design graphics,
she might design skateboards or even design whole skate parks and then sell those to people.
That did sort of come to fruition, but only in one franchise, Forza. Yeah, with the paint schemes that people spend hours doing amazing work with.
And then you can only
sell them,
but not for
real money,
for Forza money.
For in-game Forza money.
And so that was like, this is something that they talked about as something like you'll be able to do this on the Xbox Marketplace. And so they were thinking about this 8 years ago, and then 8 years later, Valve kind of beats them to it. And so it's kind of like, well, and it's really successful. Like it's going very well.
Right, but part of that I think is also the market you are targeting.
Sure.
You know what I mean? The Xbox, the Xbox and the PlayStation, a console fan base is a little bit more general and more spread out. Whereas a PC gaming, you make the commitment to buying a PC rig. Yeah. You are a hardcore gamer, and you're totally down to get on there and sell things and do this. And do
I don't know if that's true because everybody has a PC, and it's so easy. Anyone could just download Steam, and then you've got.
But there's so many games that just can't. I mean, you can't match the specs on it. Anyone can play Bejeweled. I know, yes.
But there's a list of there's people that have Chromebooks and other computers of this nature that aren't very powerful. Or a netbook computer, for example, that you can play FTL. You can play there's a list of games that are on Steam that you can play.
Sure, and I get that, but again, I don't think the general market is going. Oh, FTL, yes, I've heard of this. I want to jump right on this.
Yeah. I think it's a very, very complex problem, and so there's.
What's the problem?
I mean, anytime you're dealing with real money, that's a big deal. That's very complicated. Your system has to be more secure, sure. Because people can. I don't know how much money's worth of stuff in my Steam account that if I were hacked, I've lost monetary value now that I didn't lose before. People are also making money. I think if you sell a certain amount of stuff on the Steam store, they need your social security number because that's income.
Right. The tax man will come after you.
I think that's true. And I think that's a headache that Sony and Microsoft just aren't interested in dealing with.
Right.
But okay, so it doesn't even have to go that far. It doesn't have to be people can make real money, right?
Sure.
I just like the incentive of play a game a lot, unlock some stuff.
Sure.
If you're not into it, trade it to other people for other in-game items.
Right. What I really like about this most is that it's a player-to-player economy, and that's the big difference. Some people are like, "What's the big deal? You can buy these backgrounds in this, and you can buy backgrounds on Sony." But the difference is it's Sony selling you those backgrounds, and here it's one user saying, "I have this thing. Does anybody want it?" And then it lets the market decide what it should be worth.
The Craigslist of digital marketplace.
And then Steam takes 5%. Off the top. They just take 5% of the purchase price for themselves, and they give 10% back.
As if Valve doesn't have enough money already.
It's so brilliant from a business standpoint. It's insane.
You projected how much 2K could make just from Borderlands 2, right?
Yeah, I don't remember the math offhand. I use Borderlands 2 as my example game just because I'm playing it right now, and that it's popular on Steam. But it's something like they're making, I think it's $90 a day, roughly, off of goods. And it works out to something like, $300 and some $1,000 a year.
Mm-hmm. What?
Just off Borderlands 2 virtual trading cards. That might be 30, no, excuse me, drop a zero off that.
Okay.
Jesus, I'm glad I figured that out. It's about $30-some thousand a year.
But still
that's just an extra $30,000.
Yeah, and it's one game.
Yeah.
That could be a whole, fun budget for your team that we're going to just take that money and take
our holiday party
to Disneyland.
yeah, for sure.
Right. That's why this system is a win for everybody. It's a win for the developer because it's a new source of not a huge amount of money, but they're going to make a little bit more money off their game than they used to. And for someone's like 2K, maybe they don't care, but if you're an indie developer and you're already only selling your game on Steam, there's games on Steam that are just $3 or $4. Mm-hmm. So now, if you're able to make a few more cents off each user, that's a pretty big chunk of change. So it's more money for developers, more money for Valve. Valve is giving things people that the other console makers are selling to people. And if you're a user that just doesn't care about any of that stuff, you can just sell the goods.
So what are the odds that Sony and Microsoft adopts something like this?
50-50.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where it won't be anytime soon because specifically, I think, in probably both of their cases, Microsoft and Sony, they're so wrapped up in just trying to get these consoles done. And
there's so many other problems now.
Not even the hardware. I'm talking about the operating systems.
Right.
On the software side, that they might come back to this in a year and go, you remember that Valve thing from a year ago? How's that go? Oh, it's still going. All right, let's look into that for next year's. Wait a couple of years.
And don't forget too, it's all about that specific audience. Even though if this takes off on Steam, if you don't see a decline in people buying Avatar items and people buying these horrible PlayStation Network wallpapers, then what's the why would they even care? Don't worry about it.
We did a video, I guess last year. Remember that Battlefield 3 wall that you could buy for your avatar? It was just a wall that your avatar would duck behind to hide from cover.
And we make fun of this all the time, but then I get on there, I'm like, oh, a new Superman shirt, yeah. And then
Did you buy that
a dancing Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Yes, I bought all of this.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, so a dancing Stay Puft Marshmallow Man seems a lot cooler than a Turbo T-shirt, right?
Sure.
There's
little
varying
things
degrees.
that, okay, that's me. That's what I want.
The reality here is that, it's super easy to sit here as, an IGN editor and say Microsoft and Sony, you're behind, you got to get on the ball. But the reality is anything that deals with real money is incredibly complex and complicated. And that's a business that they're not in right now. They would need to hire new people with new expertise on how, player-to-player, peer-to-peer marketplaces work and how to keep it legal.
And also, something to keep in mind, too, is besides just the trying to get their software done, Microsoft and Sony are, a friend of mine put it to me well, they move like tanks, very slowly, whereas Steam is Valve is a much more nimble, agile company that can be like, all right, let's try this out and see how it goes, whereas Microsoft and Sony, it has to go through 7,000 people first and all sorts of different hoops and measures first.
Sure. I mean, I think we're getting close to, I would not be surprised. Team Fortress 2 is already like this, and Dota 2 is like this. So Valve is a company now where they give their games away for free. Both those games are free, and they're not sort of free in a bullshit way. They're genuinely free. And then they make their money off the sale of these virtual goods.
Well, that's like we were talking the other day. Isn't it the wild success of things like this that are the reason why we still don't have Half-Life 3?
Yeah.
They don't need to, right? They don't need to. They're
and I want to make a clear distinction between, they're not selling people Dota 2 items. People are selling Dota 2 items to other people. And then they're making 5% off the top of all of that. You'll get some rare drop in Dota 2. You sell it to somebody for $50 and Valve makes, $1? How does 5% work? What's 5%?
$2.50.
$2.50, thank you.
Blizzard does it with Diablo 3 auction.
House,
yeah. But that's a $60 game. That's the difference between them and Valve.
I see. Very interesting. Well, thanks a lot, guys. Stay tuned for more from IGN GameScoop.